Hi, everyone. It's Ryan Fowler here with my good friend Tim Costello, the Inner Game Group. Jordan is on vacation today. He's out of town.
Hey, Ryan.
Yes, sir.
Keep your mouth aimed straight at the microphone. Other than that, it dies off pretty quick.
Okay. Is this
Beautiful.
better?
Beautiful there.
All right. Awesome. So Jordan's on vacation today, but we got a good one today. I actually have two clips by the good doctor Ramani, and she specializes in narcissistic abuse recovery. But I gave a webinar last Monday about hurt people hurting others, and she brings up a good counterpoint, which I agree with, but I want to give a counter to her counterpoint. But, you know, the fact is people who behave terribly are all terribly wounded inside. However, that's not necessarily an excuse for their behavior. So we'll dive into that. Also, she's going to explain childhood trauma that makes narcissists. We're going to comment on that. As you know, I have, a very close relative who has narcissistic personality disorder. And I've managed to forgive that person completely, 100%. Understanding why these predatory people do what they do and how they're just really wounded. And a lot of them are highly unaware of their subconscious world, can help you forgive and understand, but doesn't mean you should accept their behavior. Actually stay the hell away. But hopefully this will be a benefit to you guys. But before we dive in, Tim Costello, introduce yourself, my good friend.
Hi, I'm Tim with TimCostelloHypnosis.com or ClearThatTrauma.com, whichever one you like to go to. Ryan, this is a really good topic today because I think that narcissism is greatly misunderstood.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people who might be egomaniacal or egotistical or something that somebody will confuse arrogance with narcissism. Now,
yeah.
I think every single one of us, because we're selfish human beings, have a tiny bit of some narcissistic tendency.
Yeah.
That does not make you a narcissist.
True.
Right? So what we're going to talk about today is applicable to 100% of the population in one way or another.
Yeah. And I do think we all have a little bit of a narcissistic streak, unless you're like actually unhealthy in the other direction, like
Right.
heavily codependent, absolute doormat. You let people walk all over you. No boundaries, okay, maybe you're not maybe you have no narcissistic streak then, but a little bit is actually a good thing. But in a certain way, certain traits. But let's dive in, because emotionally healthy people just don't go around treating others like crap and doing all that. So why do they do what they do? So we'll watch these two clips. One talks about hurt people hurting others. We'll comment on that. And then this other one actually explaining what makes narcissists. I have plenty to say on that because I live with one. So, by the way, we are all about healing and helping. We have a free self-hypnosis program, and go on the video section of my YouTube channel. You will see people overcoming anxiety, people who felt not good enough, insecure, not good confidence, even with the free program, just totally changing lives. We have paid resources as well, but you can get a 6-part self-hypnosis program for free to fix your inner world. School.com right there, MindChrysalis-7138. Try it out. Join the community. People are up-leveling, and we are using the most effective method in the world. It's maybe a tie for first place with maybe a couple other methodologies, but it is at the very, very top, and you can try it for free. So check that out. Without further ado, let's start diving into these clips. Hurt people. Okay, is that an excuse for these very toxic people? And Dr. Ramani here is going to weigh in. Then we will weigh in after her. So here we go.
Now, is there a little truth to this statement that hurt people hurt people? Sure, absolutely. We are at our worst when we are hurt. And it is often when we say the worst things to other people. However, this phrase, hurt people, it's also a way people try to talk about narcissistic behavior without uttering the ugly word narcissism. This phrase releases people from their bad behavior, and it becomes about a rationalization for their bad behavior. After all, hurt people hurt people. They were hurt, so that's why they hurt. See? Now, this phrase isn't entirely wrong, but it isn't entirely right. Lots of hurt people don't hurt people. And even when hurt people do hurt people, most of them rather quickly make amends. So while I understand that being a hurt person may be a risk factor for unempathic, boorish, entitled, dismissive, invalidating, harsh, abusive behavior, let's start with this. First, not all people who engage in this behavior, this awful behavior, have a track record of really bad hurt. And secondly, many people, most people with a history of being hurt, do not hurt other people. And they are aware, often too aware, of being empathic and mindful, so they don't hurt people. So when we see or witness or read about someone behaving really, really badly and narcissistically and hurtfully, it can be tempting to fall into talking about the whole hurt people trope, rather than focusing on the unacceptable nature of the behavior. Because that is what it is about. The unacceptable nature of the behavior and the need for it to be changed, or the need for consequences to the behavior, rather than justifications and narratives around this idea that hurt people hurt people. This manner of
So Tim, I'm curious what you think so far. Do you think there are people out there that are so traumatized they cannot help but be hurtful to others? What's your take?
You know, the problem with one of these particular sayings is that everybody wants to include everything in the pill, right?
It's like a blanket statement. It's a very broad.
So number one, and I fully believe this to my core, that if you're just a normal person, and when I say normal, not damaged or hurt by a narcissist who is truly preying upon you, but you're simply maneuvering through life, there are opportunities where you can get your feelings hurt, right? There's interactions between people. They could be awkward. They could be goofy. They could be mean. They could be just unintended, right? You just happen to take something a certain way. So I want to make sure that we're separating out normal conversational stuff. And I fully believe to my core that you can only be hurt when you're that way, when you choose to let someone hurt you, right? You have to want to feel that way. But absent that,
can you give me an example?
Yeah. So my boss, and I'm making this up, uses a series of words that may offend me, right? Then I would have to choose to somehow let that hurt me and let that distract me, rather than going to that person and saying, hey, could you clarify exactly what you were talking about? And, you know, what you said to me didn't come across very well. I want to make sure I understand it well. That's normal communication between human beings. He might have been in a hurry, might have been in a bad mood. Wife might have yelled at him. You never know, right? So
what if what he says,
conversational stuff?
Yeah. What if what he says triggers a wound in your subconscious? Did you choose that?
Again, now I said that is normal conversation for people who are not specifically damaged by somebody who hurt them. Now, let's jump to the other thing that is what she's really talking about. What she's really talking about is people who are, and I hate to use the word damage because it's so all-encompassing, too non-specific, but they are wired in such a manner that they have a tremendous inferiority complex, so much to the point that in order for their brain to receive some type of satisfaction, because they've never really had it, they need to control and hurt other people, because that gives them an amount of pleasure, that narcissistic supply, as we call it. If somebody like that exists, and they do, that person will likely manipulate other people to get them to provide that narcissistic supply. Now, that person who has been manipulated, especially at a very young age, can be now affected by that. And now, if your subconscious controls 95% of your decisions throughout the day, and you are triggered, you're triggered because there's a match for something that hurt or is good in your subconscious, and now you're reacting to that. And that could be an emotional trigger of pain or an emotional trigger of pleasure, because there are songs I hear now when I was a kid that bring me great pleasure, makes me 12 years old again.
Yeah.
But like other people, if the patterns match and it becomes a very uncomfortable situation, that pain erupts. And that pain is a hard thing. And that will cause you to now do something different than you may have chosen to had you been fully in control of all those faculties. So yes, I didn't always believe the devil made me do it, you know, kind of saying, but in reality, your subconscious made you do it. And your subconscious programs are running 24/7 in your head. And guess what? If they're determining 95% of what you're doing throughout the day, what little choice do you really have?
Yeah, our subconscious mind determines 95% of our behavior. That's well-established fact.
Right. Scientific fact.
Yeah, scientific fact. The good news is we do have power to change our subconscious. And really the question here is, okay, if these people have all this trauma and that is controlling their behavior, should they get a pass? Should we not hold them accountable? My answer,
no.
They absolutely should be held accountable.
Absolutely. They should not get a pass.
Yeah, because if you don't, they'll treat you even worse.
Now, you know my parents, and you've said nice things about them. Well, yeah. I married a girl who was somewhat manipulated and damaged by her parents.
Yeah.
And when I fell into that situation, I loved Carrie. I wanted to be with Carrie. She was cute, had a nice butt, all that good stuff, right? I was very attracted to her. But me and her mother never got along tremendously, but I never knew why. And the long story short, the reason was she had a tremendous difficulty controlling me or manipulating me, and she found tremendous frustration in that. I felt sorry for her now, realizing I wish I could have helped her way back then, knowing what I know now. But the reality is, I did not allow her to treat me in a certain way and get away with it. Wasn't going to happen. There were going to be consequences, discussion, absence, whatever, but I'm not hanging around and putting up with it.
And how, because you wouldn't put up with her crap, how did she react to that you could observe?
Well, when I left, I don't know what she did, but when I was around and told her that wasn't appropriate, she would tremendously try a lot of excuses to manipulate and gaslight me around into why it was appropriate. And I still wouldn't put up with it. It was just a bunch of bunk.
And then what happened? So you still wouldn't put up with it. And then what?
Oh, she'd stomp away.
She'd stomp away. Do you think it was helpful that you held your ground?
Absolutely. But it didn't help her. It helped me. It helped Carrie. Because Carrie's like, I don't know how you do that. I can't figure out how to do that. Because I didn't realize back then that Carrie was triggered by this lady.
Yeah.
Right. Now, she was also a damaged person.
She was a hurt person hurting others.
Yeah. So she was certainly a broke individual that was just trying to maneuver the world the best way she figured how. Right.
Yeah.
I don't think she was evil. I don't think she was evil in her nature, because she is a child of God. Right. So there is that seed of deity there. But reality was she was damaged in reacting.
Yeah. Now, as we watch both videos by this lady, I think we're going to get a lot more clarity that these very toxic people, to what extent are they culpable? To what extent do they have control over their subconscious mind? It's gonna get interesting, guys. It really is. So here we go. We'll keep going.
Conceptualizing narcissistic behavior is something that, unfortunately, the therapeutic community has been quite guilty of. For example, Perhaps a client going through narcissistic abuse, may come into therapy and share stories of being gaslighted and invalidated and devalued and just generally narcissistically abused. And some therapists and coaches may contextualize the bad behavior of the abuser from a hurt people framework.
Hang on there for a
I
second.
hear you're hurt.
I think, and I've not been to a lot of therapy, but I've been around it. I think sometimes that contextualization into that hurt people is a sense of gaslighting.
Yeah.
Because it's now,
or how so though? Maybe
well, it's now justifying and allowing those people to hurt people.
Yeah.
Here's why they did it. Here's the justification. Screw that. Identify it as toxic behavior and separate yourself from it or stand up to it, one or the other. There's no other solution for me.
Yeah. When I learned, I started researching narcissism because I grew up with one, which, it was the root cause of my manic depression, constant anxiety, repressed anger, rage, and just anxiety all the time. Just, you knew me when I still had the trauma before I healed it with our methods. And I was able to forgive this person.
You have to.
One of the things that helped me forgive them is understand that they were greatly traumatized in their own childhood. But I'm not buddy with this person now. I keep my distance intentionally. And the fact of the matter is, at some level, they do have a choice, but it gets pretty complicated, as we'll see. So we'll keep going.
Yes.
Because this is, I promise you guys listening, you're going to have a much better understanding of why toxic people do what they do after this show. We'll keep going.
Before we roll on, Ryan.
Yeah.
I love to identify in a general nature what toxic behavior is. Now, here's my quick thoughts in a paragraph. And the founders of our United States defined it best when we are given as an individual certain unalienable rights. And that is the right to life, the right to liberty, and the right to happiness. And happiness back then was determined as property. In other words, that's how you're going to increase your fold. So if anybody does anything to hurt your life, restrict your liberty, or take away any part of your property or happiness, that in and of itself is toxic behavior. And I think, quite frankly, evil.
Yeah.
And then there are other rights that they didn't mention, but those are the three main ones.
Well, when you talk about happiness, if anyone it shames, belittles, embarrasses, humiliates, manipulates, and when I mean manipulate, I mean you're controlling them to get what you want at that other person's expense. Right. Belittles, disrespects that person who did nothing to merit that treatment, then that is toxic.
Correct. 100%.
Defrauding, deceiving, doing something that hurt someone else when they didn't do anything to merit that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we'll keep going.
Hello, Tracy Cook.
And perhaps the therapist is something, I hear you're hurt, and perhaps they are lashing it out at you because they are hurt. That doesn't take away the sting of the hurt for the person who's being invalidated and abused, and may even leave the survivor of the hurt doubting or judging themselves for not making enough allowances for the abuser's hurt.
Stop right there.
And this can then...
Yeah.
Gaslighting in its makeup and delivery sounds really good. And if you didn't know any better, you'd be convinced that that was some truth coming out of that person's mouth, especially when you're controlled and conditioned by that person.
Yeah.
And that's what she's talking about right there. You don't know the difference.
That was my upbringing, until I got into therapy. I had no idea I was abused. I just knew I was incredibly depressed, angry, and anxious all the time. I just knew I was hurting. But that's why a lot of that's why people gaslight. Gaslighting is making someone doubt their version of reality so that they don't realize they were abused. It makes it the gaslighter makes the gaslightee question whether they really were abused or not. It makes that person question, oh, you didn't recall it that way. That's not how it happened. Oh, your imagination. No, this is what it was. Straw man arguments, or it happened this, just making the person doubt themselves so that the gaslighter can perpetuate the abuse. Okay, we'll keep on going. I will say that you said we choose to be offended. I partially agree and partially disagree, because
me too.
If you have trauma and someone triggers that trauma, you don't choose to get triggered.
And that's why I said in a normal sense of a non-damaged person.
Okay,
right?
yeah, true.
So
100%.
if you're damaged, that offense isn't so much a choice anymore as it is a subconscious reaction, which you have very little control over right now to most people.
And then what we teach is how to go and remove the trauma, and then you don't get triggered anymore. And that's amazing. And
absolutely.
By the way, guys, I have another testimonial I just recorded. Did 2 sessions for a guy, complete 180 on his life. That's going to be dropping probably on Monday. So stay tuned for that. Just a real quick 7.5 minutes. The thing about us is, we're still learning how to market and up our game and that, but the techniques we have are absolutely world class. And you'll see testimonial, another client interview coming soon, and try it for yourself for free. The link's just right down there. But here we go back to.
On top of that, Ryan, as we're going through this, anybody who's watching, and I think we've probably there'll be a few hundred people viewers, got 6 out there right now, but there is a point where you have a desire for something that you want deep down in your heart. Write it down. Figure out the way you want your life to go. And if it isn't going that way, determine how you want it to go and why it's not. Right now, as we walk through this, many of you will recognize why your life isn't going exactly like you want. And the reason it's not going that way is because you have been gaslit, you have been damaged, you have been hurt. And guess what? Now, with super neuroplasticity and all these things coming together, we are artists, right? We happen to use the medium hypnotism to achieve the things that you need to achieve to change your brain. There are 5 different things of neuroplasticity that need to exist in order for the neuroplasticity to be effective and permanent. We complete that circle of those 5 things well.
Okay. Yeah, very true, Tim. Thank you. Skinny to Swole, welcome to the show. Tracy Cook, I see you. Welcome
Tracy.
To the show as well.
Hello,
if you guys
Skinny.
if you guys have any questions, just drop them. We'll answer.
Just drop them right in the chat.
And we'll keep going with the good doctor here.
Leave somebody just getting stuck in the cycles of self-blame and self-gaslighting. We are living in an era of tremendous entitlement, incivility, anger, frustration, and rage. I don't know that all of these people behaving in these ways are narcissistic, but all of this behavior is toxic. The prevailing wisdom is that all of these angry people are hurt people. I doubt it. I think some are just world-class a-holes, selfish, privileged, and I sure as hell don't buy the hurt people trope.
Hang on there for just
the mess that the.
Okay.
I love that one part where she says, not everybody out there is a narcissist, is what she's saying.
Yeah, I agree.
Some people are just a-holes. What makes them an a-hole? Maybe some narcissistic tendencies, maybe their lack of working with other people well, maybe a lack of vocabulary, control of their own anger. I mean, they may still be hurt. You never know. But like she says, they're not all a full-blown narcissist. They're just an a-hole. And I get it.
I say, Tracy Cook, how do I get help? Start right here. I'm gonna put like I'll
So Tracy's a fabulous customer of mine. Tracy, you can go to school.com/MindChrysalis-7138. That'll be the start. You can join up, participate in conversations, and you and I can have a discussion offline away from the old diamond painting world.
Yeah, now there is, if you go to the video section of this YouTube channel, you can also look at a ton of testimonials. If you find the video, it's like a month old, Super Neuroplasticity Part 4. There's a guy who used the free program right there. 10 out of 10 depression, completely fixed it, listening to the audio 4 or 5 times. So we have resources for free that are like, and we have other people use a free program. One guy, 9 out of 10 procrastination, 1 session, 75% gone, did it all for free. So we got the free resources. Try that out. You'll get the quickest, strongest, fastest results with a one-on-one session. Some people need one-on-one sessions. Some, the free stuff is do it yourself. It's education and a self-hypnosis audio, and there's worksheets, and you go through it, and 80% of people it's going to work for. Some people need some level of coaching and guidance. So we have those other resources as well. And go to the video section. Just start watching those testimonials. You see just so many people, just massive changes, just all the time. I got another one dropping on Monday. I've done it hundreds of times. And
yeah, just so we're clear, on the YouTube channel that you turned into now, which is Ryan Fowler SOS, Ryan is my mentor, former business partner, now just an associate. We're working together to get this thing taken to the world. This YouTube channel has a lot of videos you can look for. In order to get the free instructions, self-hypnosis, and those good things, go to that school.com/MindChrysalis-7138, or you can go to mind-chrysalis.com. It'll take you right to that website there. So either one will get you to the free goodies, communications, conversations. Ryan's in there, I'm in there, Lawrence in there, Jordan's in there, supporting people, answering questions, that kind of stuff. And a number of people find pretty good success with the self-hypnosis audios. We, however, do one-on-one sessions with people where that isn't quite good enough, or they need a little bit of guidance. And after 1 or 2 sessions with us, you're screaming on your own really, really well, because the giant lump is gone. And now you're just peeling off little things that you need to take care of.
Yeah, so you can try the free program. It helps about 80% of people, but even those people, it helps at some point. They're like, wow, all this other stuff I'm struggling with is gone, but here's some stuff I can't quite figure out on my own.
Right.
And you do a one-on-one for that. Anyways, Doc, I want to comment just a little on Dr. Swami, and then I really want to get to the next video, which gives a lot more context. Just because you hurt others doesn't mean you're a hurt person. I think the reason we hurt others is we're either wounded or we're ignorant. And short-sightedness is included in ignorance, meaning these people are royal a-holes. They don't understand that by being a-holes in the long run, they're shooting themselves in the foot. These people tend to have crappy lives because they play the victim and they remain disempowered. They manipulate others, and then people distance, and they're like, this person's a jerk. And sooner or later, it comes back to bite them. And even if they become very wealthy, yep. I know my last job, my average client was a multimillionaire, and some were happy, and there were a few who were real a-holes, and they were all miserable. Money doesn't make you happy. Money
has nothing to do with your subconscious.
Yeah. So these entitled people hurting others, maybe they weren't, everyone has some trauma. Maybe their trauma is not the reason they're hurting others, but they are paying the price. Sooner or later, they pay the price. I've seen it time and time again. Anyways, I think hurt people is true, that there are some deeply traumatized people, and we have all these different ways to deal with our trauma. Some people become addicts. Some people become codependent. Some people get depressed and have anxiety. And then some people become narcissists, and they by age 6 they're already showing signs of narcissism, or age 8. By age 12 to 14 they are already full-blown narcissists. It's hard-coded into their personality. Can they reprogram that? Yes, but before they even realize the full impact, age 12, age 14, of how their behavior hurts others, it's already part of their core.
It's Heather's.
Yeah, and their entire personality of a narcissist is crafted around avoiding the pain in them, which means the last thing on earth they want to do is go inside and heal it, because they're like, avoid, avoid, avoid. That's the entire they want this false, powerful persona to be the real them so desperately. But they know deep down inside that, I'm just a loser. I'm just, So the good doctor is going to talk about this. Not everyone who hurts others is because they're hurting, and not all hurt people hurt others. But right. There is trauma that leads people at a very early age to go down that path of this coping mechanism of being a sociopath, this coping mechanism of being a narcissist. And while they're still a kid, it already gets coded into their into their core, and becomes very problematic before they have any idea of how that's going to affect the life of others around them. We'll keep going.
World is in right now.
Show it up, Brian.
When we see
oh yeah, here we go. Boop.
A person behave badly and consistently badly over time, consistently entitled, arrogant, unempathic, rude, dismissive, rageful, we want to understand why. Instead of the damned why, we need to focus on the what. And the what is their behavior. When we get caught in these little explanations like hurt people, instead of really focusing on the idea that narcissistic, toxic, and antagonistic behavior is bad for other people, that this kind of behavior is not amenable to that much change, and that most hurt people don't behave this way, then we miss the moment to come up with better strategies to manage these situations. Instead of making all of this sort of a ideological cop-out based on where all of this comes from, maybe we can talk about the harm that this behavior does to people and regard it as such.
Okay, so if you are the person hurting others, ask yourself what, why, and how. What am I doing to hurt others? Why do I do it? How do I get better? But I do agree with her. If you're the one being hurt, you just say, what are they doing? That's unacceptable, because it's not your responsibility to fix that other person.
That's right.
And so I agree with her on this. We got a little bit more than the other video. We're going to play a few minutes of it. Very, very important to watch. She actually gives a counterpoint to her own video here in her other video. So,
but for reasons that still kind of remain a mystery to me, other than maybe the badly behaved, powerful people are able to maintain the status quo on bad behavior because they get to make the rules, our unwillingness to call these toxic patterns out, again, it remains a mystery. Why do we keep making excuses for narcissistic behavior? What's interesting about...
Yeah, I'll stop right there. Let's go to the other one. The main thrust for her is... Oh, hold on. Hurt people do hurt people, but never use that as an excuse for your crappy behavior.
She said, why do we make excuses for putting up with that behavior? Sometimes
never
you're
should.
stuck. Sometimes you're stuck. Sometimes you can't get out. Sometimes you don't know you can get out.
95% of her behavior is dictated by our subconscious. If you doubt me, just Google it right now. What percent of her behavior is controlled by our subconscious? But we have the power to fix our subconscious.
True that.
So, and so do they. Now, there are other techniques out there that don't work nearly as well as ours, but they're still available. They can still, I did 100 sessions. I did normal therapy, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy over 15 years, 100 sessions. It did help about 60% of my depression. Then 2 months of doing what I do now fixed everything else, all the other major stuff, except for anxiety. And then I figured out how to fix that. And another month after I figured that out, that was all gone. So, yeah, you can fix your core.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have this other video here. So this explains about the type of abuse narcissists. It's the same thing for sociopath. It's a little different, but all psychopaths, all borderline personality disorder, all narcissists who have full-blown narcissistic personality disorder, all cluster B, histrionic, they all have severe childhood abuse. If you have it at the level of a personality disorder at that extreme, you have had severe childhood abuse. It doesn't mean we should give them a pass. Absolutely not. But it will help us understand that really these people who are the kind of the worst of the worst, who have these actual personality disorders, do have a lot of trauma. So you can talk about the type of trauma they go through in their childhood. Here we go.
Raising a child, or even trying to understand how a narcissist became the way they are, kind of what went wrong. So let's talk a little bit about the role of shame and humiliation. Now, this could be a short video on how to raise kids. Don't use shame and humiliation, because shame and humiliation are not going to be leading any parenting guidebook on what anyone would consider to be good techniques for parenting. But yet, shame and humiliation are something that have impacted the experience of so many children's early lives. It's unfortunate, but it's true. And this is often, the shame and humiliation are often a projection from parents who are grappling with their own stuff and projecting their own shame onto their children. I don't care what the psychological dynamics are, it doesn't make it okay. Now, someone named Dr. Alexander Lowen, who has written books on narcissism, is someone who, in about the last 20 years, has suggested that the development of narcissism may trace back to shame and humiliation during childhood, and is magnified by parents who are controlling and emotionally cold or distant. Now, Dr. Lowen was specifically talking about parents who would do things like give sort of disproportionate punishments to a child based on their transgression, or they would chronically criticize, invalidate, or shame the child for just about anything the child would do. Elbows on the table or messy room, for their grades, for their tears, for their worries. So then childhood becomes a chronic shame and humiliation experience. Seeing the parent always overpower themselves as a child, and also overpowering everyone else in the room. A child in that situation then learns that power is the safest way to manage relationships, and that feelings are weakness, and that not succeeding is weakness. Lowen.
And what she's not saying here is that these children learn that other people are dangerous and can hurt them. And so they have a deep distrust of other people, and they need to have this power. They need to stay in control so they won't get hurt.
Believes that this may relate to his clinical observation that children who go on to become narcissistic adults are more likely to be rebellious, particularly during adolescence. Lowen sees rebellion as a sort of means of manipulation and a way for a child or an adolescent to gain power in a family system that is so characterized by shame. Shame is a, if not the, core dynamic that we see in the narcissistic personality. And that shame can get fostered by developmental environments that are shaming or humiliating, or that focus only on the child's sort of exterior behavior and focus on them from like a place of sort of a deficit, telling the kid, oh, there you go again, you screwed that up again, as well as shaming other features of the child's appearance or their abilities, or even shaming them for being somewhat similar to like a difficult family member, like saying, oh, you're just like that, you're drunk of a father. Again, more shaming. Now, all of that gets internalized into a deep-seated sense of inadequacy and insecurity. All of that has nowhere to go. The child's emotion has been shamed. And so the child then learns, okay, my internal world isn't worth anything. So I'm going to work on the exterior stuff. And they build up stuff like grandiosity, grandiose defenses, entitlement, combativeness, all to keep their sense of insecurity and their sense of powerlessness in check. And then, as the child who grew up with so much shame and humiliation, as they get older, and anything comes up that activates those feelings of inadequacy or insecurity, also at those times their shame gets activated. And what does the narcissistic adolescent and adult do? They react against the person who may have evoked that shame. Rage will often follow, and then they may feel shame that they showed that rage. Then they'll feel more rage and more shame and more rage, and it's sort of an endless cycle. And this is why you will see the cycle in adults with narcissistic or other antagonistic personalities who will do that. They'll throw that terrible ragey tantrum. They will then read the ugly emails or texts they sent in the morning. They'll sort of pseudo apologize for them. They'll recognize it wasn't a good look. They'll blame you because it was your behavior that led them to send those messages. But, and the shame will be driving all of that. And then they'll get ragey again because you evoke shame in them. You can't win at this game with them. They're in a constant state of shame or rage or getting ready for it again. Now, shame can...
Sociopaths do that a lot too. Sociopaths have a lot of anger.
So she uses the word shame a lot, and
I think it is the number one thing at the core. She says it's a major feature.
Hang on. She uses the word shame a lot, but I want everybody to realize shame in and of itself is not bad. In fact, there are levels of healthy shame, such as we know that it's not good to run down the street naked. Right? There's a little bit of shame involved there that, you should feel a little shame
doing that.
Yeah, that you're out there running around naked. We sort of learn that by happenstance. What she's talking about is toxic shame. And toxic shame is that level of shame that now is controlling and affecting your life, liberty, or your pursuit of happiness, and causing you now to feel you're not good enough. Maybe you feel like you don't even belong in the family. How many kids have you heard say, well, I'm just going to go next door where they love me, or something like that.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to go over to Joey's house because his mom doesn't treat me the way you treat me. That kind of stuff, right? So just to define, there is healthy shame and then there is toxic shame. And she's talking about toxic shame. And again, like Ryan had said 100 times, all subconscious trauma is rooted in toxic shame.
Also not feeling safe, but really it's like, from what I've seen, 80-90% toxic shame and 10-20% not feeling safe. And anger, resentment, rage, trap rage, that's tied. That's there because of people made you feel ashamed. And
it's tied to toxic shame. It doesn't cause it initially, but it makes you resent, rebel, rage out, whatever, get angry, because it's quite frankly not fair to the core that you probably are supposed to be.
Yeah. So here's the thing. These people, she just told you, this person who is like doing all this horrible behavior is because they have this huge insecurity and shame, and it's a defense mechanism. It's a cope. And the reason you see like these sociopaths, these narcissists who are so arrogant and so controlling, well, they project this like larger than life perfect them to the world because, hey, if they're perfect, then no one can shame them, right? There's nothing to shame you for. You're perfect.
That's right.
So let's be that perfect person. So that's, one level of narcissism. The other level is I have to control you so you can't shame me, or I need to, engage in all this other behavior to cover up my shame. They actually power trip off of oh, I'm not small and insignificant. I just manipulate this person to do that. That means I have influence. That means I do have power. That counters their feelings of powerlessness.
Yep.
So, but at their core, these narcissists, and borderline personality disorder, huge abandonment trauma, huge massive abandonment trauma. And so they're doing everything they can to not get abandoned so they can be extremely controlling. But their trauma is, so when their trauma gets triggered, then they have rage, then they get depressed, then they have anxiety. And people who borderline personality, they struggle with all of that: anxiety, depression, rage. They don't feel good. Sociopaths have a lot of negative behavior too, although they've managed to shut a lot of it down. They still feel pretty crappy too. Yep. So my takeaway from this is you don't give people a pass. And the truth is, if that narcissist was willing to go inward, there are tools out there. We have them. We teach them to other people that they can use to heal their trauma. They almost never do. It's extreme. It's like literally 1 in a million narcissists is going to heal their trauma because their entire personality is crafted around running away from what's inside of them. That's why they put this false, I'm this larger than life. They know deep down it's a false persona. Deep down they're insecure and inadequate, but they want to be this perfect thing so bad. And they're just absolutely terrified of facing what's in them, which you need to do in order to heal it. You just absolutely need to do that. So,
and what they really feel down to their core is just the opposite, or just the opposite of what they should feel for the 5 or the 4 types of subconscious trauma. 1, they certainly do not feel any value at all for themselves. They have zero, they believe they have zero worth, and they believe they have no endearing feature for the world. So they feel that deep down. Number 2, they don't feel they really belong anywhere. I mean, they're really empty. They're alone. They're on an island. They just don't grab into anything or attach to people that way. Number 3,
they think all people are gonna hurt them.
Yeah, absolutely. The whole world's going to damage them. They don't feel as though they deserve anything. They literally have no desire to deserve anything other than that control that they're trying to mask, that deep down lack of value. And of course, there's a lot of rage and anger inside them, I'm sure, and they certainly do not feel safe.
I do think that they do have an actual very strong outer layer of entitlement and deservedness, but and that will manifest as being very entitled, etc. However, most narcissists really don't know who they are at their core because they spend their entire time making that as unconscious as possible, running away from that as much as possible. So they really don't know who they are. They do everything they can to try and be this person they're not. This person who's perfect, will never get hurt, who isn't ashamed because he's perfect. They do everything they can to prop up that false persona. And I am so glad. Like, would I rather be a person who is narcissistically abused because I was severely narcissistically abused? Would I rather be that person or be the narcissist? I will take the abused position any freaking day of the week because I got better. And the truth is, a narcissist, although they could, because of how their personality is crafted, they will avoid going inward at all costs. So it basically a zero chance they ever will. Practically.
Yeah, there's a tremendous lack of any vulnerability or inward looking that they could be damaged because that could destroy their personality. That they could be flawed.
Same thing with almost all sociopaths and psychopaths. They're pretty much 99.99999% chance that they are not going to fix that. It's a personality disorder because stuff constantly blows up in their face. Because sooner or later they just keep burning bridges with people. That has consequences. A lot of sociopaths have to move from time to time. I tell people, I don't, maybe not a formal diagnosis, but Andrew Tate absolutely has many signs of sociopathy. and he had to flee the UK for charges of sexual assault. Then he goes to Romania. What happens? Gets charged with sex trafficking. And I think before, he might have been in the US for a while, but eventually stuff catches up with these people, and prisons are full of sociopaths and psychopaths and narcissists.
Yep.
Just absolutely full. So sooner or later, in some way, it does catch up with them, although they can have a lot of short and medium term success and wealth. And, if you're a guy, getting all the attractive women because you know how to be extremely charming as a narcissist. But I've known these guys with these dark triad personality traits, and all of their relationships are highly volatile and are just an absolute crap show. And I would not want to be in any of the relationships they get in with. It's just an absolute mess. So I hope that sheds more light. Some people are just straight up jerks. It catches up to them sooner or later. Some people are deeply hurt. Like I was, but I wasn't a person who went around hurting others.
Nope,
when I was
didn't hurt anybody.
You knew me when I had my trauma, and I tried to still be a nice person.
Absolutely. I think
I'm
deep down
nice
you
person.
knew you should.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I would have kind of rage fantasies about hurting the people who abuse me, but then I'd actually start to feel bad if I'd fantasize beating them up, because I'm like, I don't want to do that to another person.
Right.
So hurt people. It's absolutely true, but it is true in this kind of certain situation.
Yeah.
Other people are just straight up a-holes, and they're going to pay it. They're stupid and ignorant when they do that, because they will pay the price in the long run. So it is what it is. It
is always
what it is. Ray Kroc, founder of McDonald's, absolute scumbag of a businessman, absolute scumbag, but he didn't trust anyone. He said it's not a dog eat dog world. It is a rat eat rat world. And he did not have a single friend on the planet who truly appreciated, loved him. No, everyone hated him. Would you want that life? I wouldn't. So
they only sucked up to him because he had the money.
They get the reward. We should not tolerate it. We should not give it a pass. We should not let it slide. But it is true that it's a personality disorder. They call it that for a reason, because it does cause them to dysfunction. It causes dysfunction in society. Their life is dysfunctional. Their lives are train wrecks on some level, even though outwardly they may project that it looks very good.
Yep.
Listen, I've seen these people behind the scenes. Their internal world is an absolute mess. So hurt people does apply, but it is in these circumstances, but it is never an excuse for that type of behavior, and you should never have to tolerate or put up with any of that crap. I don't care how abusive. I can forgive someone, and you should forgive people, but doesn't mean I'm going to tolerate their bad behavior, even if they had an absolutely horrible childhood. So that's my take. Anything to add, Tim?
In the book Codependent No More by Betty E.
Great book.
Yeah, I read that probably 8 or 9 years ago when my son had married a narcissist. And man, I had no idea what that was even about, right? I thought codependent meant you were an alcoholic. That's all I thought it meant. Once I started diving into it, her whole book is, and I'm going to summarize this badly, but chapter 1, this is how a narcissist becomes narcissist. Chapter 2, here's why they do what they do. Chapter 3, here's who they do it to. And then chapter 4, how do you deal with it? Get away.
Yeah, no
Literally,
contact.
Separation. Get away from that mess at any cost, because any other cost that you would incur by staying there isn't worth it.
Not worth it. Yeah. We do have power to get those people out of our lives. Maybe it takes a few years. Maybe you're a kid in this home and you got to wait till you're 18. But you can.
Hey, did you watch that video, Ryan, I sent you with that red-haired girl?
Not yet. I'll watch it.
So very interesting. She talks about the abuse that she suffered when she was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And at 2 minutes and 11 seconds in, she said, if you want to really screw up your life, do a family tree of your trauma. And she goes on and on and on talking about the trauma. And she goes, and this job that I had was my get out of jail job. It was my, I'm going to work here. I'm 16 years old. I'm going to earn enough money to just get the heck out of my house. Right. Cause she knew no other avenue. Now she screwed up. She accidentally, when she was high, hit a girl with her car and drove away. She didn't really get in trouble for hitting the girl with her car. She got in trouble for driving away and leaving the scene and not rendering aid and all that kind of stuff. Spent a little time in prison, but all she talks about was all this trauma in her life and how she's trying to escape it. She's doing a pretty decent dealing with it. I'm trying to reach out to her, see if I can get a hold of her, but man alive, it's textbook being destroyed by your parents.
Okay, so the good news is, if that's happened, that's terrible. And I've been there, you know, NPD parent. I know what it's like. It's absolute hell. But you don't have to hurt others. You don't have to be like them. You can heal from it. You can overcome it. You can get away from it. And that is our recommendation. These hurt people that are hurting others, hey, you don't have to fix them. If they really, really want to, they could fix themselves. If they don't, that's their problem. Just get away, fix your own stuff. You can. You start right there. Or just, hey, DM us, join the community. You can DM me or Tim. We'll help you out. And heal your trauma and then have a great life. You can do it because you truly do have more power than you know. That's our show. Thank you.